Cipher just got her V3 changes in the HSR 3.3 beta, and this one honestly feels like a straight-up buff across the board. If you were on the fence about her before, this update might change your mind. Before we get into the full breakdown, make sure to drop a sub if you want more in-depth kit breakdowns like this. It only takes a second and helps a ton. Let's start with the biggest gameplay shift, her follow-up attack mechanic. Previously, Cipher's follow-up was locked behind her ultimate usage, meaning you had to use her ultimate in order to trigger it, which made her rotation pretty tight and often forced you to burn energy early. But now, the follow-up is tied to turns instead of her ultimate. That means you can trigger her follow-up more consistently just by having her take actions, and you can now bank her ult when needed without losing out on DPS. It's a cleaner, more flexible playstyle that benefits both Cipher and the player. Next, her passive trace saw a notable stat change. Originally, it gave 10% bonus max HP, which was underwhelming. Didn't really help her kit in any meaningful way. That's now been swapped out for 10% effect hit rate, and that's actually a big deal. Not only does it help her land debuffs more reliably, but it also lowers the EHR stat requirements on your relics and planar ornaments, which means you can shift more substats into crit rate, crit DMG, or ATK. In short, her build path just got a lot more efficient. Now onto the vulnerability aura. It used to be 30%, already a solid debuff that boosted the entire team's damage, but it's been increased to 40%, which is a straight 10% gain in team-wide damage output against debuffed enemies. That might not sound like much on paper, but it adds up fast when you're running Cipher alongside other heavy hitters or supports who rely on vulnerability uptime. More free team damage for doing what she already does? That's a win. Cipher's Eidolon progression has also seen a pretty significant shift, with her E1 and E2 completely swapped and reworked, and it's a clear buff. Her new E1 now massively boosts her personal DPS by scaling up her recorded damage. Instead of the standard 100%, her follow-up now records 150% of the original damage dealt. On top of that, whenever she triggers a follow-up attack through her talent, she gains a whopping 80% ATK for 2 turns. This turns her into a much stronger and more self-sufficient DPS, letting her snowball off her own kit far more effectively. Meanwhile, her new E2 adds even more team value. Now, whenever Cipher hits an enemy, there's a 120% base chance to apply a debuff that causes that enemy to take 30% more damage for 2 turns. This debuff applies to all sources of damage, making it a huge boost for her entire team, especially when paired with frequent attackers or multi-hit skills. Compared to the earlier versions, this new Eidolon layout improves both her carry potential and her support value right from E1. There's also a bit of a meta shift in her gear. Before, it made sense to use an energy regen rope to help cycle her ultimate faster for follow-ups. But since follow-ups are no longer tied to ult, many players are now pivoting to ATK rope instead, boosting her personal damage. This gives you more freedom in how you build her, and lets you prioritize damage without being forced into ER stats. So overall, more consistent follow-ups, better team utility, improved stat efficiency, and stronger Eidolon progression. Cipher's update is a solid buff that fixes her awkward rotation issues and smooths out her build path. She's looking a lot more viable in both solo DPS and support DPS hybrid roles, and she's shaping up to be a pretty valuable unit heading into 3.3. What do you all think?